So the Jaguars won in week one. Ashton, already our predictions are shot. Crazy week one, guys. We're going to
hmm
talk about all the games, our reactions. Join us today as we kick it off. So we are producing this video on Tuesday or Wednesday. We're not entirely sure which day yet of the week. I'm
hmm
thinking more like Tuesday-ish time, but we're recording this before tonight's Monday night games. So the Steelers and Giants, we both think the Steelers are going to win, and then the Titans and the Broncos. I think me and you also said both the Titans are going to win.
Yeah, Titans.
So we'll talk about those in the next video, but we wanted to get with Sunday out the way. We wanted to just run down all the games.
hmm
It's been a crazy week to say the least.
Yeah, I think it was always going to be a weird week with weird losses and weird wins. I will definitely say typically we won't do this on Monday morning, but given circumstances, it's my wife's birthday tomorrow, so I hope you guys understand. But we're going to put on our wizard hats because I don't know how good that is this week because we have been a little bit we haven't been terrible. We didn't get like every pick right, but
Yep.
we'll go over that in our week 2 predictions. What our actual prediction numbers are at and our percentage at predicting correctly. But this year, I don't or this week, not a lot of people saw the losses happening. There are a lot of 7-9
Yep.
teams, I think, or 8-8 teams. I assumed would be like mediocre that lost to teams we assumed would be garbage fires, and we'll get into it, but I do think a lot of those teams are bad. They just weren't as bad as the
Yeah.
mediocre teams.
Yes, but with that note, let's go ahead and kick
hmm
off the first game, Thursday night game. Houston losing to Kansas City, 34-20. Pretty run of the mill stuff. Going to this game, you picked the Texans, I picked the Chiefs. I thought Kansas City's offense looked stellar. Mahomes was Mahomes. He didn't throw as many passing yards. He was 211 yards, but still had 3 touchdowns, no picks. Another good day for him.
That is a Rusty Mahomes, which
Yeah,
should
but
say,
it's week
but
one.
but that's a Rusty Mahomes. That should tell you everything you
Yeah,
need
yeah.
to know about how good he is.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire looks like a beast. It looks like they found their next running back to make this offense, which already was the best in the league, even better. And Kansas City's defense, though, they do have a question: can they stop the run? Texans
Yeah,
did not
they.
run like they should when they were running.
Oh yeah,
David Johnson looked healthy.
they had a hot hand.
David Johnson has 77 yards and 11 carries, but they
I
decided not to run him.
I definitely think the question this year is, can the Chiefs have a defense that's average like they did last year? Because they
Yeah.
had a great offense and an average defense. And the question is, can their defense live up to that? And if they can't defend the run against a mediocre Texans offense, because you could clearly tell they were missing DeAndre Hopkins
Yeah.
so much because they just didn't have that vertical threat. And it, it was just a sad, sad sight to see a Texan offense that almost wasn't changed from last year, but they didn't have the same weapons.
Will Fuller, though, does come on and get over 100 yards receiving. He's that next kind of guy up. I thought it was going to be more Brandon Cooks, but he didn't do much. Like on Thursday night's game, you as good as Deshaun Watson is, he can't do much when he's getting sacked 4 times.
Yeah.
Defense didn't do like it should. 34-20 victory with the Chiefs. Not too shocking there. But we'll see how the Texans go from here. It's a long season.
Mm-hmm.
Next game up, we turn to Sunday, and a huge slate of 1 o'clock games that were very important in dictating how the season is going to go. One of them is the Seahawks and the Falcons. Seahawks defeating the Falcons 38-24. I thought it was a good game. I think Matt Ryan had a really good game passing. He did throw some crucial interceptions that really cost him the game. I think the Falcons had two turnovers that really changed the game because they only lost by 13. Those the 2 turnovers, and the offense looked good. They had 3 receivers get over 100 yards. That's insane. Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, and Russell Gage all caught for over 100. But the problem on their offense is the running game. Gurley did not have the best game. You take away that 15-yard run, he was only averaging like 2 yards a carry. So not a good game for them. Defensively wise, they were pretty trash. They weren't the worst. But I think they gave up almost 400 yards.
They were getting sliced and diced by the Seattle, and just overall, I think these both teams transition 2019-2020 practically the same teams. Seahawks have some really dynamic play on offense. Their defense is a little lackluster. their secondary is their problem. They can run defense somewhat well, and that's why you saw Todd Gurley have a all right day. Atlanta, like last year, has a good offense, but their defense can't keep it together, and they're gonna lose games like by 7, 6
Yep.
points if their defense and secondary can't keep it up. Because Seattle has like two really good first and second receivers, but their third receiver, there's no excuse for that guy getting over 100. And I think that's more Atlanta's defense than Seattle's offense. Russell Wilson's gonna be Wilson. He's great, and Seattle's gonna have a good year, but that's definitely one we both saw coming.
Yeah, no big shock there. But the first real shock of the day that we both got wrong: Eagles 17, Washington football team 27.
How
Not
do you
only
go
was it a
from
win,
17 points up to lose?
ask Matt Ryan.
Oh.
I mean, it's just you look at the Carson Wentz on the day. Carson Wentz looked awful. I think his QBR was below 30. It was like a 19. I could be completely wrong, but he threw what, two interceptions, had a fumble. Carson Wentz looked awful. They don't have Alshon Jeffrey, but even if they did, he is an aging receiver. So their offense is in trouble. The offensive line is still about the same. They're above average to good.
Well, they
But
were supposed to be number one offensive line going into the season. Everyone projected them as a great offensive line, and that is very troubling. I think they lost a right tackle too, and it might be left tackle, but I think it's right tackle. I know when we talked about this game right after it happened, I noted that the interesting thing was it seemed like neither team wanted to win, and they kept on trying to lose it. And yes, the Redskins made some plays in the second and third quarter to end up winning the game. And I would say Haskins wasn't great. He had some good throws, but that again, it was like the the Eagles defense just didn't want to win the game,
yeah,
and they just kept on giving up big plays, and both teams were fumbling and throwing interceptions out like candy. So it was a weird game, and it's shocking that the Redskins had some good plays, but overall they were a dumpster fire, and the Eagles just happened to be a more
yeah.
hospitalized dumpster
You
fire.
look at the NFC East. We'll get to the Cowboys in a second. Giants play tonight. But the NFC East is looking like probably the worst conference in football right now.
They
And
were
this,
last year
they were
and
last year. So
continuing
you're
that.
looking at another team. Like I saw a tweet that was like, it looks like another 9-7 or even a 7-9 team can make the playoffs. But
I think a six
we'll
six
see.
win team could.
We'll see how it goes. Next game, it wasn't a surprise, but it was a surprise how the margin of victory was. I think the Jets losing to the Bills 17-27. I don't think the Bills really. At the first half, they were impressive. They didn't allow a single point. I think it was either 0 points or 3 points going into the second half. But the Bills team looked dominant on defense. Josh Allen looked fine. He was moving the ball around, running like he should. But after halftime, it feels like the teams kind of shifted. The Jets started to get momentum. Bills defense were too good to mount that comeback with the Jets. But I mean, if the Bills want to go far this year, their offense has to step up. Josh Allen has to step up, and they need to look better than they did against a team like the Jets at home.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna note that it wasn't a shocking game. That's kind of exactly how I saw it coming. The Jets aren't a impressive team at all, and it kind of reminds me of a 2019 game where like the Cowboys just blew out a team like the Jets or the Jaguars, and people were like, "Oh, the Cowboys are like super super top tier." And yeah, they had a good offense last year, but people need to not over project because of one game against a bad team like the Jets. And the Jets did get worse than last
They
year.
got they got
Yeah,
worse.
they lost
They
Jamal
lost Jamal Adams and
Adams.
C.J. Mosley opted out this year. So
Uh,
defensively, wise, they got
they
worse.
they got a lot worse. So the Bills still did their job. They finished out. The defense was stellar, and their offense was, I would say, for playing against Jets, they did
Fine.
average I would say above average, but still, if they want to beat better teams, their offense has to be sharper, especially with the throws. And if Allen makes some of the same throws but against a better secondary, Jalen Ramsey ain't going to make that mistake where he just lets the I think one of their receivers just caught over a defender. So it's
When they play the Patriots, that would probably be their first real
yeah,
secondary
that's
test.
going to be a good measuring stick, and I think I have them beating the Patriots, so it's going to be interesting.
Wins the win at the end of the day. Let's move on to another shocking kind of. We didn't see this one coming. Bears winning against the Lions
Uh,
27-23. Matthew Stafford did not look good in his game back from his injury. I don't really
yeah.
blame him. He's still shaking those cobwebs off after he broke his back last year, had no preseason, so you're going to see that kind of learning curve again for Stafford. They didn't really have they have Peterson as a running back. He's 34, 35 now, so an older running back is not going to do much. Defense against a quarterback like Mitchell Trubisky did not do what they needed to do for this year, which is honestly Matt Patricia's last year. They can't find a way to win. They don't start off well. Losing 4 points to the Bears at home against the Bears team that is having maybe one of the worst quarterback rooms in a long time since the Browns were a couple years ago.
It
It's just not a good look for the Lions, which is a team that many expected to be better this year.
I would say it's not a good look for either team. They both look stale on both sides of the ball. They had a lot. I believe it was one of the most fouled games of the weekend. I don't know the exact stat, but I think it's one of the top ones. And to me, just both teams were. I expected the Lions to be kind of like Atlanta, and they weren't even that. Where they had a good offense and like a lackluster defense. They had a lackluster defense and an average offense. And I think that could be attributed to Stafford's kind of downgrade of play due to injury. And maybe he gets better over the season because I actually like Stafford. But man, the Bears, they're going to have a rough time against good teams. They'll be able to pull off some wins against bad teams. They come off to me as like a 9-7 team or like 7-9 team.
The
Where,
Bears.
yeah, the Bears.
I still don't see that. The Bears looked. Both teams just never impressed me last night and yesterday. I don't think either team's gonna have a good year unless Stafford can turn it around. But I just don't. I don't have faith in Trubisky or Foles, if for that matter, to lead the Bears team.
It's their defense will be good enough to get them like 5 wins.
Yeah, they're
I
a
think
5 or
that's where
6 win team, but
yeah,
I don't see them winning
the
above 500.
mediocre. No.
Moving on to maybe the most interesting game of the day, other than maybe the late night game, is the Packers at the Vikings. Packers winning 43-34. Let's just say Aaron Rodgers is mad and he is playing like it. 364 yards, 4 touchdowns, 93.0 QBR.
That poor Vikings secondary.
Rodgers was tearing him up. Devontae Adams is back. He's looking healthy and elite.
Oh, yeah.
156 yards, 14 catches. That helped my fantasy team get the win. And their O-line was good enough to stop, only allowing 2 sacks for the Minnesota defense.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those games where you realize how much wasted time Green Bay has had with Aaron Rodgers and a certain coach who only got one Super Bowl with Aaron Rodgers. Like, people forget Aaron Rodgers, when he's not hurt, he's super good. And
Yeah.
it just reminds you, because this Vikings team isn't bad. I don't think they're a bad team. I definitely think the Vikings can beat some good teams. Not because of Kirk Cousins, but basically everything else.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins was just not good,
And I constantly say this. Kirk Cousins is not the QB where if you need him to be the one that wins you the game, he will not be the one that wins you the game if the game's on him.
Yep.
But if everything else is working in the game, he won't lose you the game.
Also, the defense of the Vikings was atrocious. 0 sacks, 0 interceptions, 522 total yards.
Oh,
They took a huge hit last year. They lost some people. That's going to be a problem. If they can't stop any, they're going to have to play the Packers
shredded.
again.
Shredded.
If they can't stop, there's no way they can win the NFC North.
What was their offensive or their ground game or against the ground game? How did the Vikings defense do?
It wasn't awful. I mean, they didn't run as much because Aaron Rodgers was having a day.
Well,
But I think it was either 100. It was under 100 or just above 100. But
Okay,
Aaron Jones
so
didn't do.
basic.
They didn't really run much.
Didn't need to.
They didn't need to.
When you're getting sliced and diced like that, you don't have.
I mean,
to.
you do. Aaron Rodgers going for 364. The rest of the yards are on the run
That,
game.
that's it.
So,
I would say that's the most impressive game by any team this week. You could argue the Chiefs kinda because you kinda expect them to be rusty after Super Bowl, but Green Bay looked sharp.
moving on to my Dolphins game, 21-11, they lose to the Patriots. Not really a shocker. I think the Patriots did not look good though. I think Cam Newton did enough to win 70 yards on the ground, but they just didn't look sharp. When they did, it was just those short dink and dunk passes they're used to, but they didn't have to. They do a fumble in the end zone that would have been a touchdown, miss a field goal, so really it should have been a 31-11 game. And Dolphins, one more thing I'll say, their defense looks good enough to win games, but Fitzpatrick has thrown 3 interceptions last game. That cost us the game. Bad penalties late, but both impressive of the Dolphins. They have a bright future, but very under impressed by the Patriots team.
Yeah, I agree. This Patriots team is screaming kind of 9-7 if they continue at this pace. I will say I'll put out the kind of hot take of the day. I think if Tua came out and he stayed healthy and didn't get hurt, they would have won that game.
Uh,
I really think Tua is dynamic, and if you put in a dynamic player and you don't have Fitz Magic, which his whole career has been, he plays 2 or 3 games amazingly, and then the rest he's mediocre. He gets good yards. I mean, he's the perfect average quarterback. But the problem is, you need more than average to beat a Bill Belichick defense.
I don't. I see where you're coming from. I still think it's not the right time for Tua. As much as I love him and I want him to take our team to new heights, I just don't think it's time yet. But let's move on.
Mm-hmm.
Raiders and Panthers, very close, very back and forth game. Raiders pulling ahead 34-30. Really, we don't have much to say there. We thought it was going to be really a coin flip kind of game. You can see that Bridgewater is a better quarterback than they had on the Panthers last year with literally nobody. It felt like both teams will be, Josh Jacobs was good. The Raiders were I mean, it was just a run-the-mill game, honestly.
The Panthers, I thought their offense was slightly better than I expected. Their defense is just nothing. It's a hole. And I think Oakland came out worse than I expected. That's why it was a close game. I was expecting more of a 7-point victory for Oakland or like a 10-point victory, and they didn't get that. So I'm definitely looking even further down on Oakland, which I think had 5 or 6 wins in my prediction. So I think they may not even hit that bar, which is sad because they have some good playmakers. They have Corey Littleton, he had a good day, and Josh Jacobs, which is, man, he's going to be a good future running back for
Diamond in the
Raiders.
rough pick for John Gruden late in I think it was a late first round pick
Yeah.
2 drafts ago. So great pick there.
Yeah.
Most shocking game of the day. Consensus, critics, everybody was saying the worst team in America going into the NFL season, the Jacksonville Jaguars, picks up a touchdown victory over the Colts.
Minshew magic.
The biggest problem of why this happened is Phillip Rivers looked bad in that game. Colts have all the pieces to win, and they have a good offensive line, receivers to throw to. They got a running back, and Marlon Mack got hurt, but Hines stepped up and looked good. The defense is there enough to win. They don't have the quarterback still. Phillip Rivers, like I predicted, his age is catching up to him. He's going down the hill a little bit, and if he doesn't turn this around, and you can't lose to a team like the Jaguars that lost almost all their pieces on defense, and they still picked off and still looked like they were doing
Some
good.
of their rookies did step up a little bit, Jaguars, but man, the Colts, Philip Rivers is just, he reminds me a lot of Jameis Winston as he ages, because he always got a lot of interceptions, but he would also get more touchdowns. So he was that weird Jameis kind of like Winston type QB, and it's just he's repeating it but without the touchdowns, which is, you can't do that. And I feel like the Colts are gonna have a rough season. I think that's clear. Jaguars, I still think are hot garbage, but Minshew is good enough where if a team is having an off day, he will be able to take somewhat advantage of that. And Jaguars could be a 5 to 7 win team if they can knock off some teams like the Colts that are expecting to be mediocre, but they're not going to be good teams. Maybe if the Chiefs are having a really good day, a really bad day, and they're having the best day ever, maybe. But I wasn't impressed with either.
We'll see. Ravens destroyed the Browns. No shockers there. Lamar Jackson, no picks, 3 touchdowns. Great game. But Baker looked awful. Just couldn't get that offense going. OBJ wasn't anywhere on the field. It felt like Browns are going to have a tough year if they can't get any offense. Can you agree with that?
Browns were terrible both sides of the ball. Ravens were good on both sides of the ball. Expected, predictable.
Yeah, you're not going to stop Lamar Jackson. No. Many teams won't, and the Browns did not have enough talent yet to do that. Bengals losing a very close one to the Chargers, 16-13 loss.
Tragic.
Yeah. Burrow he had glimpses of very high potential, but did not live up yet to those expectations. He had some good runs, but then,
once he got comfortable, he definitely showed promise. And man, that last drive was a beautiful drive. He even got a last second touchdown that got negated because a wide receiver pushed off.
AJ Green pushed off.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, Green
it
Green
was
knows better too.
it was his first game back too. From I think he's been out for 2 years due to injury. So Bengals team have a lot of hope, a lot of promise. The Chargers did not look too good to only win by 3 against a Bengals team that is young and experienced, other than AJ Green. Really, it'll be interesting to see how both teams
Yeah.
develop. Both teams shouldn't win too many games, but moving on to another America's game of the week, as told by I think it was Fox, but Buccaneers losing, Tom Brady's debut losing 23-34 against
Ooh,
New Orleans.
2 interceptions.
Brady looked bad. He looked bad in his debut, and Gronkowski was a non-factor.
Yeah, I didn't expect Gronk to not be there. You could see this Tampa Bay team didn't have chemistry. I mean, the Saints are Saints. They're always good, and they're probably going to lose a tragic playoff loss again.
Yeah,
But I definitely think the Saints have some areas they can work on. Alvin Kamara is great, but if you shut down that run game like some teams did last year, they could have fits with other teams, and their defense, like even for a Buccaneers team that didn't have chemistry, they still scored a good amount on the
no,
Saints.
I think it's fine. You gotta understand in context that the Buccaneers team had a lot of talent on the offensive side, and they shut him down to 23 and got 2 interceptions on Brady. So it wasn't the best defense. They can play a lot better. But week one, getting 2 picks on Tom Brady
No,
isn't bad.
it was a still impressive performance by the
Buccaneers had
Saints.
no running game really at all, and then the
Yeah,
Saints. It's shocking that Michael Thomas only caught 17 yards on 3 catches. So they did all that without Michael Thomas playing really at all. It
yeah,
felt like so.
yeah.
Arizona beating the 49ers, maybe not the biggest upset, but it felt really like an upset. 24-20. Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins might be the best quarterback receiver duo in the NFL after that game. He looked amazing. With Murray's looking a lot better in year 2. They're not perfect, but they go on the road and they beat the defense that was number 1 in the NFL last year. And that's all you can do.
Yeah, it definitely was a shock to analysts. I know as someone who heavily pays attention to the NFC West. I know I said on our prediction video I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not shocked that they won. I was 50-50 on this game, and I fully expected the Cardinals to give the 49ers fits, especially if their offense was stale. Their offense definitely was stale. Like,
Yep.
Jimmy G, like, someone said on Twitter, was like, oh, the coach of the 49ers stuck pressing B on his controller because he
Yep.
kept on circling around. So
If they want a chance to win this year, Jimmy G's got to play better. I think last year it showed that the reason why they didn't win the Super Bowl was Jimmy G. They'll
and
go as far as their quarterback will take them.
yeah, the 49ers cornerback too definitely, the cornerbacks on their defense definitely gave up some big plays.
It's tough though. It's DeAndre Hopkins, man. It's any corner is going to be Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas are all corners that receivers that are so tough to stop. Even if you're like Gilmore
Yeah,
or
you really need the top
Ramsey.
three quarterback to really even contain those people.
Moving on to the last game of the night, it was a fun game for you to watch, but the Rams defeating the Cowboys in the closest game it felt like of the night, 20-17.
Yeah.
Honestly, both
hard.
teams. I know you kind of were impressed, but both teams really didn't impress me. I mean, a win's a win, and that's always good to start off the way. Cowboys did not impress me. They gave up the game a lot of times. It was not the refs' fault they lost. So Cowboys fans that are saying that that's not true, you had plenty of opportunities. You missed a field goal. You decided to go for 4 on 4th down, which I say still a good call, but you could have got a field goal there to tie it. You had problems. Defense felt like it couldn't stop anybody in the first half. You decide to take forever in the fourth quarter, and then you don't run Ezekiel Elliott when he's having a hot hand. Rams side of the ball, they look a little bit better than last year. The offensive line looks better than it did last year, obviously. Cam Akers did not impress. Malcolm Brown was good. He was a little shocking surprise. They played good enough to win, not great enough to beat better teams, but good enough to beat a team like the Cowboys.
Yeah, if you're a Cowboys fan and you're complaining about the refs, number one, your team only scored 3 points in second half. That's an issue. You're not going to win games if you do that. And number two, I think they were like 3 out of 12 on third down conversions.
Yeah.
You're not going to win games doing that. And, at least in my opinion, of course I'm biased, I think the Rams played better the whole game. And even the announcers were like, yeah, the Rams are down by 1, but they've been the better team. and that's because they went to the red zone 6 times and only got points twice.
And that's the negative parts about the Rams. You mean
Yeah,
they're
yeah,
converting
that's
two
unacceptable.
two for six on red zone attempts. That's 33%. That's not good enough in the NFL. You got to
No,
step
no.
that up.
Yeah, that's they need to do that, change that if they want to win against better teams. I feel like there's a lot of promise in this team. It kind of reminds me of the 2018 team early on, close games that they end up pulling out in the second half. We'll see if they'll continue that. They definitely could be a 8-9 win team if they get lackluster and they don't keep up production. But hey, we have a new defensive coordinator and he got shredded the first half of the game, but second half, holding the number one offense from last year to only 3 points, that's an improvement. And maybe if he can keep that up the full game, it could be top five defense. You have some playmakers, and if you can take advantage of Ramsey and Donald, who looked great yesterday and got his first sack, it will definitely be a good year for the Rams. But
I
got to
still
keep it
I
up.
think both the Cowboys is going to be the Cowboys this year. I can see them anywhere from maybe 7 to 10 wins. Rams kind of the same way, 7 to 10 wins. Both teams look about the same. But thank you guys for joining us on our week one just breakdown. We'll probably put something in the next video about tonight's games, the Monday night games, the
Probably
Steelers,
won't be
Giants,
interesting.
Titans, Broncos. But join us when we talk about week two predictions coming up later in the week. Please like this video if you liked it. Let us know in the comments what you guys thought of some of these games, some of the shocking ones, more of your favorite players, how everyone did. Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.